Welcome to the Values Exchange podcast. I'm Mike Cruz, your host, author of Saturday Every Day, private pilot, and CEO of North Texas Wealth Management, a firm dedicated to values-based financial planning. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Values Exchange podcast. Excited about my guest today. Jason Day is here with me. Military background, police officer, and running the police academy. We're going to talk all about that today and the lessons and things you probably don't know about the police force and the training. But today we're really going to focus on the true value of disciplined training throughout your career. So Jason, thanks for being here with me.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
All right. So not being a police officer, it's always fascinating to kind of understand the structure. And so I guess the title of Richardson Police Academy Coordinator. What is that? What are you doing in your current role?
Okay, good question. My current role, each agency sends their people to some type of academy. Colleges have them, there's regional academies, and some departments have their own, isolated. At Richardson, we partnered with Plano, and we host a kind of a joint academy. And so I got moved out full-time out there to kind of create it and build it. So I've been there. I'm one of the original architects of it. And my job day to day is just to manage and kind of keep control of our academy classes. So there's three of us that kind of coordinate classes. We alternate, then we help each other out between each cycle. And our job is just to continue to develop, create calendars, right, to make sure that this training's running the way it is, develop the classes, make sure, audit everything that's going smooth, and just kind of be there as a counselor and a principal for an academy to make sure everything's going well. So That's kind of my role.
Okay. So walk me through that. So if I woke up one day and said, I want to be a police officer.
Sure.
What does that look like? What is that process? How long does it take? Can anybody just kind of sign up to be a police officer?
Yes, anybody can. There are a lot of restrictions, right? So police academies or police departments have a lot of requirements that you have to meet, and everyone's a little different, right? The state has certain requirements, and then each city can expand on those requirements, such as Plano, they require a college degree, where Richardson necessarily doesn't. They might have some hours requirement. So everybody has a little bit different of a structure. And you're 21 years old, right? So you're gonna be carrying a gun. There's a lot of kids that come out of high school looking like, hey, I want to be a police officer. And they have to go do something, right? Get some life experience. And then there's two main routes. You can put yourself through a police academy if you meet the state minimum requirements for licensure. So like Collin College, Eastfield, there's a bunch of academies you can put yourself through.
Okay.
Obtain your license from the state, and then you're more hireable to certain agencies, right? Like I already have my license, you don't have to pay for it.
Okay. How long does that process take?
So the state academy is a 720 now, or 736, I'm sorry. 736 hours curriculum.
Okay.
They keep changing it every legislative cycle, they move it up.
Okay.
So it's about a 740 hour curriculum, so 20 some weeks, right?
Okay.
Of what these different academies would run. Mm-hmm. Our academy is a 29-week system. We have just over 1,100 hours of training.
Okay.
So we try not to focus on state minimums, but by not being a regional academy or held to some education standard, being part of a college, we have the ability to flex that out so we can add more training. So to get into ours, you have to get hired by your city first.
Okay.
So that's the two paths. You can either go put yourself through one of these academies, kind of a free agent, if you will, right? Yeah. Or you go to apply to different cities, right? And each city either runs their own academy or they partake in one. Mm-hmm. So like I went to North Central Texas Council of Governments over in Arlington, was the main regional academy in this area, North Dallas area. So everybody just sent their new hires. So you're getting paid by the police department to go to school, to attend the academy. So which is kind of nice, right? I'm not having to put myself through it and then work on the side. So that is the ideal way, but sometimes people aren't hireable right away. They're too young. They don't have the experience yet on their resumes. So they need to just put themselves through an academy while they gain experience and stuff like that. So two main really routes to get there.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Now you didn't start there. we go back, starting really military experience in the Marines.
Yeah,
Thank you for your service.
appreciate it.
Tell me about that. So what did you do in the Marine Corps?
So right out of high school, I decided to join the Marine Corps. I was too small to play college hockey. That was my goal, my dreams. So I decided to join the Marine Corps. That was in 1998. I spent 8 years active duty in the Marines. Best time of my life. Enjoyed it, loved it. The bad thing about the military is they don't love your family life. So at certain points, you have to make those decisions. And as much as I loved the military, decided to get out and raise my family. Okay. And that's when I landed here. So I was stationed in Hawaii for 4 years, which was nice. And we stomped a lot of the same grounds. I know your story. Yeah. We were there same time, same areas, and
didn't know each other in Hawaii.
Didn't know each other
together. Yeah.
But yeah, then I got stationed here in Fort Worth, Texas, as my second 4-year tour of duty.
Okay.
And I'm originally from Michigan, so I'm like, where's Texas? Like, what's going on? Came here, fell in love with it. So by the time it was time to get out of the Marine Corps, just decided to stay. It's a great area. So, that kind of sets you up pretty well for police departments. That military background, that discipline, the structure, it kind of fits in well. I had no idea I was going to be a cop. Never entered my head, didn't want to do it.
Okay.
Was not really at all. I had a buddy in my Marine Corps unit who was a police officer.
Okay.
At Richardson, where I'm at. And he's like, hey, man, you should just try it out. Okay, let me try it. 18 years later, here I am loving it. So.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
So what did you actually do in the Marine Corps? What was your...
So my MOS, my specialty was aviation ordnance. That was my title. So aviation ordnance, so they send you just to schools. So I trained on F-18s, and then you get orders, and you're like, oh, nope, you're not going to F-18s, you're going to Hueys and Cobras. So then I went to school in Camp Pendleton for Hueys and Cobras, learning how to load all the ordnance on those, bombs, missiles, a lot of missiles and guns.
Okay, so all the weapons on
all the weapon systems. Okay. Then you get orders again, and you find out you're going to transport. So pretty much that yearing of school I had was for nothing, because they don't have any of that on the CH-53s that I was on in Hawaii. So we got out there to Hawaii, and there's not a whole lot for ordnance to do. So I got lucky, and they cross-trained me to be kind of an aerial observer. So I got to fly around on the helicopters and, outside of just the ordnance stuff, which they had some defensive countermeasures, right? Okay. Everybody's heard of chaff and flares at least. You watched all these movies, the little hot things that pop out of the side of the aircraft to divert missiles. So they have those.
Okay.
And they have 50 caliber machine guns on them. So we would maintain those and those electronical systems. And then we also got to fly around, which was cool. Shoot some guns out of a window.
Did you get to shoot a 50 cal?
Did. I got
all right.
to get to do some aerial gunner stuff.
Wow.
So I got lucky that it was cross-trainable.
Okay.
And I was able to put some hours in. And then when I came to the C-130 unit, that was my time in Hawaii. Then when I transferred to Fort Worth in the C-130 unit, I was ordnance still, right? Aviation ordnance, but again, not a whole lot of ordnance to do. So I was a quality assurance. So whenever somebody went out and did maintenance on the aircraft, I would go out and inspect it, make sure it was done correctly and by the codes and all that. So
what I would say from battlefield to now the streets, being a police officer, when you look back at like that training that you received in multiple different areas, how do you think that helped you kind of transitioning to be a police officer? I mean, besides the experience with the 50 cal.
Right. Yeah. So, my time in the Marine Corps, I spent about 3 years in Iraq during the middle of the war, right at the onset. We were actually one of the first units in. And I think that constant training for that, mm-hmm. it allows you to operate under really, really adverse conditions normally, right? Okay. It's never normal and it's never easy, or it's not terrifying, but you're able to complete your tasks without it overwhelming you because you're dedicated to the training and you train all the time. So like transitioning to a police department, where officers day-to-day see things, go through things, experience things mm-hmm. that are not typical, right? It's somebody's worst day of their life, and we're experiencing those moments with them every day, right? So you compounded the worst thing that ever happened in your life, and that's one call of my day, and then I go to the next person's worst thing. So it's a lot. Okay. And I think that training helps shield that from you, right? And you can still operate and do your job and leave the emotions and all that aside, right? And just just being able to go through that, right? And then obviously going through all the adrenaline dumps that you get when you're in the military helps when you transfer into police world. All these adrenaline dumps, your body's still able to control yourself, right? And I know it's served me greatly. And I see the difference between myself and some coworkers who didn't have those experiences. They struggle early on until they can develop that sense. So
talk to me about that. So adrenaline, when you say adrenaline dump, you're in this high stress situation. Maybe, I don't know. Give me an example of like when you experience that and what that feels like, and what do you see like for a new person when they first experience it and they didn't have the military background?
Right. So something as simple as maybe a vehicle chase, right?
Okay.
It's high stress, right? People get worked up. It's an adrenaline dump of your body. You're about to go chase after this guy. Who knows what speeds, moving through traffic. We don't know what they've done that they're running. We don't know if he's going to jump out and shoot back at us, if he's going to hit another car and we have to deal with that, if someone's going to hit me. There's a lot of things. So you get that adrenaline spike. And for new people who haven't had a lot of exposure, maybe their police training wasn't as good, which we pride ourselves in our academy, right? That's why we focus. We have to build our own. We have to start kind of introducing these things to young recruits so that it's not overwhelming when they hit the street. With the military experience or someone who's had big adrenaline dumps or stressful events, they're able to slow their mind down and process things. Otherwise, everything gets ahead of you. And I know with you being a pilot, it's exactly that same, where it's a lot of things happening, and I want to be ahead of the game, not behind the game and trying to catch up. So by that constant training and that exposure to different isolated high stress events, I can focus my mind and worry about what's happening and what's happening next, instead of just being caught in the moment.
Okay.
And that's when you see the freeze. When they go through these events, we kind of gauge it by listening to their how their voice is going, right? They go high pitched voice, they start talking really fast or not talking much at all. We can understand that officer is struggling and they're having a hard time processing in the moment. And that's when bad decisions happen, right? So we can know to terminate it for them, right? Because they might feel in control, but you can tell from the outside that this person's not really there. And through training, we can curb that timeline, right? We can curb that to where our emotions aren't overcoming us. And everybody has something very similar. If you've been skydiving, if you've been on roller coasters, if you whatever kind of freaked you out the first time, and after you do it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, you notice that, well, now it's just fun. Okay. It's not, I don't have this pit in my stomach when I go a roller coaster anymore. It's just, I look for that adrenaline dump, but I can control it. My hands are up now. I'm smiling, and I don't have that look of terror on my face on that first camera shot, right?
You can open your eyes.
And it's no different in the police world. Yeah, it's the same thing. We become used to it. So we don't want, as police officers, the first time we're having to adjust, be for real on the street, right? Yeah. Whether it's a chase, a fight, a foot chase, we don't want that to be their shock moment. So we try to get that done in the academy early. Okay. That's the value of training is we can start reducing these things. Yes, they can make better decisions, but the main thing is they can make a decision instead of just being panicked and kind of freaking out.
What do you see most common that people freeze or react in the wrong way? What's more common as people?
Yeah, so for people in general, a lot freeze. And we know this doing like active shooter training in schools and teachers, where we tell them specifically, you're going to hear a gunshot and you're going to escort your children out the door, and they know it's coming. They know it's a blank, and they hear it, and it's a little louder than they thought, and they actually freeze and panic, and they can't move. They can't make a process, which is not good. And in the police academy, we start off with a lot of high stress stuff to see what is this person's natural body reaction to high stress. Can they come up with decisions? Can they move through it, or does the fear control them? Same thing in the military, right? That's why they do a lot of things, because you can't let that control you. So for police officers, if we start noticing that can be cause for termination. I can't put someone out on the street who can't, their body just, everybody's different. Yeah. Can't function through this stress and through these issues. And in the academy, throughout the academy, and then early in an officer's career, we'll notice that they're making decisions, just might not be the best decision at the time, but they're responding, right, to what they perceive. So if we can help them perceive more what's actually happening, then we're making better decisions. But sometimes everything's happened so quickly, and if you're not ready, right, if you've lacked training, if you've lacked discipline in your work, right, staying focused and staying in the moment, you end up making bad decisions under good intentions. And that's very unfortunate in our line of work.
Sure, yeah. Do you see that people have to have a certain amount of exposure in that training to overcome that, or is there any magic number of you got to do this 30 times and then all of a sudden you can
they say 1,000 reps to get comfortable and do stuff. So certain things like weapons manipulations we will do over and over, so our body can create some kind of an indexing, some kind of a memory system that this is the same. For high stress incidents like we talked about, it's like a roller coaster. The more I do it, the better I can react to it. I'm not kind of shell shocked. I'm having fun doing it now. The adrenaline's still there. It's the same body response, but I'm able to control it all. The more I do it, the more times I've been through it. So it's really hard to mimic a high stress event, even in a training scenario. We try, but they know it's fake. They know they're not really going to get hurt. The environment's different, but we try to do what we can. Maybe, turn the lights off, flick them on. They have to do something immediately, right? It gets their stress up. It tries to simulate it, and we can cut down on the reps by increasing the stress. But yeah, it's a career long thing. I don't like the military. We train every day. Every day was training. In police departments, they don't have the budget or the capacity. We're out doing our full-time job, right? Yeah. So to get away for training is sometimes hard. Monetarily for an agency and manpower for an agency. So we put it on them to teach them how to train themselves mentally, right? Doing the mental reps. So those take more, but it's just as effective if I'm thinking about it day to day, call to call, what could happen, we call it the what if game. And I'm taking mental training even in between my calls, maybe even on the way to a call specifically, I'm playing it in my head, right? And those help me curb when something happens, it's not a shock, right? I'm ready for it.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of stay in these, like you described it, stressful, high stakes environment for a long period of time. And then, if we look at the length of your career already, approaching 20 years in the police force, what would you say, like principle wise, or that discipline, how do you stay diligent in that training? Because for the most part, a long career like that, it's easy to get complacent.
100%.
You see it even in the pilot community. You've flown for a long time, and then you're like, I don't need the checklist anymore. And we see directly that leads to more accidents. So sticking to the checklist. What do you guys do to stay sharp?
Absolutely. Complacency kills. That's bottom line. And each academy class in 29 weeks, I probably say that probably 100 times. Hey, complacency will kill. And it's preaching to the choir, right? They're brand new, they're fresh. They're like, well, of course, why would I do that? But you start getting into this career for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, you feel like you've seen it all, you've done it all. The high stress things are happening over and over and over, and you're like, well, okay, no big deal. And it is a severe problem. The only way to really, that we combat that, the main way, is we watch other police videos. We stay up to date, right? Watch what other officers have done, because you might get in your pocket where only certain things are happening, right? Well, the rest of the country is all having different problems, and that problem could be here tomorrow, could be my next call. So we're constantly evaluating and dissecting other police encounter videos so that it prepares us, and it kind of puts you back into that mode, like,
what would I do in that situation?
What would I do in this situation? And this could be my next call. And it's 100% mindset. This profession is very challenging for a lot of people based on what you see, but it's just staying in that mindset constantly so that I can be ahead of the curve, right? So, and that's the hard thing with policing, like is prepared as we are, we're still behind the curve, right? We can't, we always have to react to somebody. So if I'm talking to a guy on the street and he wants to pull a knife out, I don't know that he's about to do that, right? I have to wait until he actually does something before I can intervene. So we're always behind the curve.
Yeah.
And if we're not trained, if our mindset's not there, if we're not disciplined and structured and fighting that complacency, that timeline is skewed. Now I'm even further behind that curve to where we want to be right there and be super reactive, which is why a lot of officers are maybe a little edgy when you talk to them, right? A lot of people are like, well, I talked to the officer and he was kind of a jerk. Well, it's because they're trying to stay in that mindset, right, of alertness and awareness, and it might not really match with being cordial and being friendly, right, and being the officer they saw on a movie or a TV. That might not exist because of that mental state that officer has to stay in.
Be ready for anything.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense. So, I think in the military, you probably saw a lot of intense situations, almost like causing trauma and obviously police officers experience the same thing. How do you guide someone to like deal with, I guess, that spike in adrenaline and the emotional trauma or the things that you see? How do you cope with that and move forward?
Like you talking about in like a training, how do we talk to them to prepare, or in the moment, how do I personally prepare? Or
just how do you deal with it even after the fact when you experience this maybe traumatic situation, it takes its toll on you emotionally, and then you walk away from that. How do you process that so you can like get up the next day?
It's a slow process to start dealing with it, right? It's not something that just happens overnight. And a lot of it stays with you, and you have to find pro-social ways to deal with it. And we talk about that with new recruits to educate. I think education's huge. Understanding how your body reacts. There's a lot of families that are ruined because of trauma. They see it day to day to day, and they take it home, and they don't know what's happening to them. They don't know how to deal with it. Now they're taking it out on their spouse and their kids, and it's not the guy or the girl that the other person married or they knew as their father or mother, because they don't understand what their body's going through. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to label it. So we do, I hope, a good job at teaching them what your body's going to go through. So I think that understanding can help people deal with it. And it's on them to find ways that can help them. Me personally, it's coaching, right? And that's how we kind of got to know each other, was I was coaching your kid in hockey. So I find things to do that are pro-social, that gets me out of my work mindset and into some kind of communal outset. So a lot of people, that's church, family. If they have a large family, they spend time with it. They make it a priority because they're not going to want to, right? You go through, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if I'm high stressed all the time, when I come home or in between it, I'm going to drop down and I'm going to have depression. I'm going to be isolated. I want to be alone, right? And that's normal. And it's important to have everybody understand that that's a normal
kind of
reaction to just having a job that's in the high stress. So if spouses can understand that, and the officers can understand that, it can be worked around, right? There can be communication later or some things that are made up. So I just had to force myself, right? Again, complacency. It happens not just at the workplace, but at home. So force myself to get out in the community, find things that I enjoy, and don't stop doing them, and encourage my friends and family to push me into them.
Okay.
Right. And to me, that helps. In the moment, breathing, control your breathing is huge.
Okay.
Control your breathing, slow the moment down, right? And focus on, I use the win philosophy, what's important now. Famous Lou Holtz, coach, kind of used that motto for coaching. And I apply it to policing world. I did it in the military, did it not, what's important right now. And I stay focused on that, so I can kind of master the present and not be overloaded with everything else that's going on. And when we can start to put things in perspective piece by piece, usually you're able to have a better plan and come out a little bit better on the end. So it's not an easy process, right? It's a lot, and everybody's going to have something different. The bad thing is some people, they go into alcohol or pain meds or something like that to deal with problems, and that's not helpful, right? So you just got to find things in your life that you value still, and you just got to know that you're doing things for the right reason, right? So whether it's the military or police, that you're here to do this job, such as writing tickets. Nobody enjoys writing a ticket, right? Cops don't. It's not like we go home and like, oh man, I wrote so many tickets. This is great. It's not something that you're happy doing, but it's a necessary part of the job, right? Because we appreciate laws, right? We appreciate people following the laws. And that is the unfortunate part of making sure you have a society that does it. So when you have that mindset too of, I'm doing things for a greater purpose, you can deal with them a lot easier. Like, I had to do this, but just like in combat, nobody enjoys killing people, right? Or doing things that might not be great. But you have to realize and take yourself into a bigger picture there and say, I'm doing this for a greater good, and my part of it is important. And that helps to deal with things.
Bigger picture makes sense. What about like team dynamics? So with police officers, you do all this training, and then all of a sudden you're kind of thrown in with a partner, or you're relying on other people to do.
Right.
How do you learn that? Is that something you learn, on the job, or is that something taught in the academy, or?
Yeah, I think it's both.
Okay.
Certain players are team players, no matter what. They talk about personality, A type, B type, what makes a better police officer. You really have to be a hybrid, because you're sitting in a car alone all day long, going to your calls. It really suits type B personalities. Because most of the stuff we do is one officer in Richardson. There's other agencies that are two-man all the time.
Okay.
But in Richardson, Texas, it's a lot of one-man calls. So you're by yourself a lot, but anything that's high stress or anything, family violence, stuff like that, it's always going to be 2-3 officers going to it, building searches, and you have to learn to be able to react as a team. And we try to really push that in the academy as well. We pair them up with different people to learn different personalities. Because there's going to be times you're riding with a partner, or you have a training officer that's riding with you, and you can't let personality conflicts get in the way because you're a professional, right? We want to be respected as professionals. Well, you need to handle yourself as a professional. So you have to just kind of let that go. And we try to introduce people to new, different personalities and get these preset notions aside and be able to just focus on the job and be a constant professional. But it can get tough trying to learn how to get along with different people. Especially if you've been isolated, right, and you haven't been exposed your whole life. Now you're getting dumped into a community where there's all different types of personalities and backgrounds, and they just have to kind of figure it out and make the best of it. But you have to rely on them, and that's where policing kind of gets the behind the blue line kind of thing, the brothers in blue. Like there's always all these cliche sayings about the police, but you have to have it. Like I have to trust, if we're going on a call together, that you're going to have my back and I'm going to have, and that I will have yours. Yeah. Without that, everything kind of falls apart. So regardless of how I feel about the person I'm going to a call with, it's imperative that we trust each other and that we respect each other, regardless, because you're going into a situation that you hope will go just fine, but always is a chance. It can go sideways, and we have to rely on that. So teamwork is a huge dynamic in the police department, and it forms a strong brotherhood internally because of it. You go through stress together, you come out, and you're better for it. The Band of Brothers shows it really good in a dramatized military movie, but it shows that a lot of people who go through this together, all the stress and all this stuff that happens, they're tighter and they're closer for it. The academy is really good for that. When they go through all the stress and problems together, they come out and they already have that bond. Then they go work in the field, and they're working with the other officers, and they're building these bonds, and that's something a little bit different than a normal friends have, because of their shared experience.
Yeah. What would you say maybe the overall public perception and understanding of the police force from what we see maybe in media and all of that today? What do you see as the big myths versus reality of how it really is? I mean, it has to be a stark contrast. Yeah,
there definitely is. I mean, everybody has to realize what they see in the media is a little skewed, right? Everybody has an agenda or an opinion. And I would say just learn for yourself and educate yourself. Don't just listen to someone else's words. So mainly what I see, police officers, they all come to do a certain job. They want to help people. And I see there's approximately 18 to 25 recruits in every class. And I've been there since class 1. We're currently on 21. So I've seen 21 groups of 20-some officers come into this police academy. Every one of them has wanted to do the same thing. They want to help people. They want to do their part. They want to serve something bigger than themselves and be part of something bigger than themselves. They care about their communities and their families, and they want to protect them. What happens and gets skewed is they look at one mistake an officer had made, one problem that had happened, and they want to exaggerate it and say it's everybody, all of this. And it's just not the case. Most officers are kind, loving people who are just out there trying to do something good, right? And make this world a safer place for your family, my family, everybody's family. But they get vilified for it, for some things justified that officers have done. Okay. But the good thing is we learn every doesn't matter what job you're in, medical profession, legal profession, everybody's made mistakes, had errors, and we've adapted and changed and made our profession better for it. It's just ours are tragic when you see the errors, and it's very unfortunate, but most people they're not out there just evil. They're trying to do their job. Which is why, that you'll hear it all the time, like, oh, this officer pulled me over, gave me this ticket for this. And a lot of them want to vent to me when they know I'm a police officer. And it's like, well, I guarantee the officer didn't enjoy that. It's his job, just like it's your job. Talk to someone in medical billing. I'm sure they don't love giving these big bills to families, but it's their job, and that's what they have to do. And we have to look at it the same way, that it's my job to put criminals in jail. It's my job to hold people accountable when they violate laws. But that's the main thing I see is just, and I've noticed it a lot since I started 18 years ago. Public perception with police, it's just the pendulum. It swings back and forth. Okay. They see one nationalized event and they want to just start hating police, and then something else happens and then they love the police, and it swings back and forth.
So it kind of treats you all equal. I mean, it's, like one police officer made a bad decision. Right. Now all of a sudden all police officers are bad, and it's not that simple.
Right. It's not that simple. And everybody's just trying to out there do what they can or what they felt was right. And it doesn't always mesh with what the citizen saw or thought. But that's the great thing about the legal system is it doesn't just stop there, right? They have the court system, and they don't. It's not just a foreign country where it is what we said, right? So that is the good thing about it. There are other avenues that they have as protections, but yeah, that's the main thing that I've noticed. There's a lot of people that come into this profession. They're like, oh, I want to chase bad guys and I want to do all this, and it's like, okay, it's a part of the job, but it's kind of a minor part. The bulk of our job is just being a mediator. Yeah. You just go to a situation, you resolve the problem. You're kind of the adult in the room. Try to mediate the situation that two people are having. Find a good resolution, you move on. Sometimes the resolution has to be citations or somebody going to jail, but in the bottom line, all we're trying to do is mediate situations to make everything go along without somebody getting hurt. That's the majority of it, right? A lot of writing. We ask people, how well are you at writing, and what's your English like? And they're like, oh, I don't know, but I shoot a gun really well and I can run really fast. I'm like, that's really cool for the 1% of our job that requires that. But the rest of it, you're going to be typing a lot. You're going to be writing a lot. You're going to be talking to people a lot. How's your interpersonal skills, right? So there's a lot of misconceptions too of new people who want to be officers. They have these false views of what a police officer is.
Okay, makes sense. What part of the job would you say you enjoyed the most?
That's an interesting question. There's certain moments. I love the good thing about policing, and what draws a lot of people, I think, is it's not standard. It's something new every day. It's standard. You could say, okay, I go to briefing, I get in a police car, I drive around and answer calls. That's standard every day. But the different types of calls, the different people you're going to meet, the different problems you're going to solve, it's constantly challenging you. And that's what I love. I love a good challenge. Probably why I chose the Marine Corps, probably why I loved it, probably why I've chosen this career path and stayed with it. I like being challenged. I like my mind to be work and useful, and not just a cookie cutter. Like, I come into the office, I type these reports, I go home. It's very dynamic and different. And then you get the adrenaline dumps here and there, right? Which are fantastic. Everybody loves a little adrenaline dump. And you get something really cool, right? You save somebody from a situation, or you arrest somebody who was doing really bad things, or you helped someone who was in distress, and it just makes you feel so good about your choice and you sacrifice. I mean, officers are choosing a sacrifice in pay. Most of these officers could go out, they're very intelligent, go out and make double the salary in the private sector somewhere, but they don't, because they have this higher calling that they need to help people, and they want this they don't want to be stuck in an office, they want to be out there. And I love that about this job. It does wear on you, right? I did patrol on the streets for 12 years. I never went up and did the detective thing or anything like that. I loved it, but it starts to wear on you, right? All these encounters, the hours, the belt, the weight, starts affecting your mental state and your just physically. Okay. So the new challenge for me, when I saw it, I have a master's degree in criminology. I love education. I love to constantly learn. When I saw this opportunity come that we're going to run our own police academy, I jumped all over it. And now today, day to day, it's probably the best of my career, in that I can play a big part in setting up new officers who are going to go out in the street and not just do their job, but do their job well and for the citizens that they serve. So it's a really proud thing to do, to say that I have a stamp and a mark on all these new officers. And I have my agency is fantastic, and they give me a lot of leeway to modify curriculum as I see fit. If we notice there's a gap, a training gap or a problem, to modify, right, to expand. And that's why they've given me 1,100 hours from the 700 that are required.
Wow.
Because they understand, they trust the system. And we've pushed out a really good product. And so I really love having that influence. As much as I miss some of the adrenaline dumps, my life's a little bit more standard now. I'm sure my wife loves that.
Yeah.
But for me, I miss it. So I'll hit, and we've talked about it. I'll take you out on the street one day and we're going to do a ride along. So you'll get to see firsthand. But so I try to make it a point to get back out on the street.
Yeah.
Because
Stay sharp.
fall back in love with what I do, right?
Yeah.
And stay sharp on my skills.
No, that's great. No, thank you for what you do and the impact that you make in the community by training the next generation of police officers the best way that you can. So you mentioned that you have a master's degree. I think, sometimes people think, well, I might become a police officer because I don't want to go to college.
Correct.
So I think it's interesting that education is such an important part. What, as we kind of close here, what advice would you have for like youth that are like, one day I want to be a police officer? What would you tell them to like expect and how to be successful on that path?
Yeah. So education is great, right? Obviously, everybody loves an education. It shows a lot of things in your character and who you are, but it's not the end all be all. I kind of fit outside the mold. I'm a Marine and a police officer, but I also have a master's degree. Kind of went both ways on that one. So I'm kind of a weirdo, I guess. But I tell most people, and I have a good friend whose son wants to be an officer, and I say, just get into something. If you can get into school part-time to show that commitment and that education, because you do need to be able to read and write very well, and the college will help hone those skills. It also introduces you to so many people. And a huge thing in this profession is being able to build a rapport with anyone.
Okay.
I don't care if it's a homeless guy or if it's a very affluent family or a foreigner. You have to be able to deal with everybody, and college is great for that because it's the true melting pot. You'll have people from all walks of life, and you befriend them, you build rapport, and you talk to them, and that will really help you. As far as the work goes, people, it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting life experience, but I always try to guide them, like, go work loss prevention at a store, right? There's certain stores that do a great job with loss prevention. You get hired on with, high school, and you start seeing that system, right, kind of working. And there's several stores that I've worked with that are fantastic loss prevention agencies, and we would go in there and we'd partner with them. We'd work all the time trying to curb thefts. So that's a good field, right, to get into. But pretty much anywhere where you could be part of a team, and not just isolated, like, oh, I worked from home on this. Well, where's your life experience? And when it comes down to it, an oral board, they want to look at what is your life experience? Okay, you just went to school, but what else did you do? Okay. You just worked at the grocery store. What else did you do? They want the life experiences. So being part of sports teams, being in the military, working in a team in like a loss prevention type role, those are team jobs. Something that you could say, I have life experience. I've had to communicate. I've had evaluations, and supervisors have evaluated me, are really good for new people going through. And if college isn't your thing, that's the great thing about this profession. I've actually did a study in grad school on education levels and performance in police. Okay. And the big thing out there, and this has been being pushed since the 40s, August Vollmer pushed this out in California a long time ago, education. We want to be a higher education. Let's force and mandate education. And the big myth's always been a higher level education creates a higher level performing officer. And when I did my studies, it didn't show that at all. You can make data look whatever you want when you start manipulating it, but I didn't find that to be true. It's more of the characteristics of who the person are, as opposed to what they've just done. Yeah. So college is a good stepping stone, and it is great, but it's not for everyone. Okay. And trust me, I just sent my kid to college. It's his first week there, and I know it's not cheap. So a lot of people can't even afford that opportunity to go to college. And this career field is welcoming to all of them. I would say get a job that gets you involved in a teamwork, some type of leadership experience, however small, because that's what it's all about. I can make decisions, I can follow instructions, and I can get a supervisor to sign me off and say, yeah, this was a valuable employee to our company. And really that life experience is what most police departments are looking for.
Well, Jason, thanks for being here, shedding some light on really what it takes in the police force that we're all unaware of and really get the benefits of on a daily basis. We live in a society that, we enforce the laws we have, and that's an important component. So thanks.
No, I appreciate you having me, Mike.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you found it as valuable as I did to learn about the value of training and then also the core values of family and really how it helps, cope with the stresses in life.